If you're slow and meticulous, I've walked up on so many turkeys, so many deer, so many bobcats, coyotes, and it's because I'm slipping from tree to tree. I'm keeping something between me and the wide open woods, or me and where I'm going, that kind of breaks that concealment up, and I'm doing it with a purpose. I'm willy-nilly out there flopping along. There's a big difference in when you learn how to do that, or woodsmanship, and stalking squirrels with a 22 is the best way to learn that. When you get to where you can kill a limit of squirrels with a single shot 17 or a single shot 22, you know how to sneak through the woods.
And one thing that's real intriguing about you hunting all these bottoms is we've been in some of them. It's a lot of big, giant, open timber. And a lot of times, especially on feed trees, those deer are not very far from those feed trees at all. And the fact that you're able to sneak up on them and get up in a tree and hunt and have those deer stand up 75 yards away in the open and walk up to you is pretty remarkable. So I want to talk about how you like to slip through the woods. Like, what is your style of slipping through the woods where you're able to not alert deer in a situation like that?
Well, that goes back to, all right, there's when the deer are in those bottoms and they're in overcut flats, they're unhuntable in that aspect. You can't get in there with us. You can't. So what you do is I always tried to get around areas where I knew there was storm damage, there was blowdowns, there was a creek, there was a draw, there was something that those deer would go to, and I would get the wind right, and I would stay on the outside of that, put those feed trees between me and that, and over time and years of walking, I kind of knew where they would be. They like big logs, big treetops, and I would scout with binoculars through the woods, and I would say, okay, I see those treetops right there. So I would work my way around to where the wind was right, slip in. You could tell I'm looking for big red oaks. When I'm in the bottoms, that's typically what I'm looking for. So I find the big red oaks that are between me and there, and I ease to them, and you get away with it a lot because the deer are sleeping. Man, you have to be quiet. I don't know how many times I've taken my boots off and strapped them to my stand so that I could get to it. And that come back from squirrel hunting. I mean, just heel to toe, soft and easy, slow, meticulous. I walked when I was at the height of my success. It was really before or right when the GPS, the maps, the iPhones, all of that started getting popular, so I could outwalk people. They just, not that they were lazy maybe per se, but they're a little leery about getting lost or couldn't find the same spot or something like that. And I learned to read a compass early in life, and so that's how I got in and out. And I would just I was seeing so many more deer than a lot of people because I was getting to where the deer had been pushed to, and I was just on more deer. So it comes back to knowing that, okay, these deer are probably, today this is the area I'm hunting, they're probably going to be bedded in these treetops, or they're going to be, those red oak ridges in the bottoms usually have briar thickets on them or something like that. So you just try to, and you jump deer. I mean, you do. So if I jump deer off of this ridge, I go 2 ridges over. I would just get 2 more ridges over, and people in the bottoms, they're like, what do you mean a ridge, man? I walked for 6 miles, I ain't seen a ridge. Well, it's overcuts, red oaks, overcuts, red oaks. Red oaks are on the ridges. So, but yeah, and I mean, that comes back to woodsmanship, time in the woods. All of that takes time to learn. I mean, it's not something that we can talk about and teach. You can point people in the right direction, you can give them advice about it, but it takes time in the woods to learn that. Now, when those deer are in those overcut bottoms and you see the beds out there right in the middle of the overcut bottoms, the only way we figured out to kill those deer, and we got successful at it, was go in before daylight. When that was the only food source left, you go in before daylight, you run them out, you set up, and usually between 2 o'clock and dark that afternoon, they'd filter back in. And there has been years when there wasn't red oaks, or the red oaks were gone, and that's how we had to hunt them. Not what I want to do, but necessity sometimes leads to that, and that's how we would do that. And I learned that actually from some guys that were hunting bedding areas that would go in, and they had success because they were hunting places where that was the only bedding areas, the only thick stuff around. And they would go in and blow the deer out of there at 4 o'clock in the morning. They would hang a stand, and then sometime around noon or that afternoon, they was having success killing bucks. Now, as I look back on some of that, I think, okay, it was during the rut. These bucks were checking. Maybe these deer wasn't coming back in there to bed. They were checking. But anyways, they were successful doing it, and they were blowing deer out early and going back in. And that's how we would do wide open woods and overcut flats and that kind of stuff. You just blow them out early and wait them out, you know. And that's really all you can do. But when you know that they're probably along this swamp, they're along this old ditch row or creek or, storm damage areas is one of the best places in the river bottoms. Find where storms went through and there's a bunch of blowdowns. Stay on the downwind side of that and get, you know, when it's right and they're dropping, you can find them trees that are 100 yards out of them. You set up on those, you're going to have a good hunt. You got the wind right, you don't make any noise, you're going to have a good hunt. And noise is a huge thing. People don't realize that. You can get away with thudding and thumping if it's a dull thud and thump. If it's an aluminum or a metal sound, it kills your hunt. And people just, you know, they don't see nothing, and they don't realize what it is. Well, they're making a ton of racket hanging sticks, climbing stands, or something like that. And I learned that because I had a carbon old man. And everything on it that dinged, I fixed. Everything in my equipment, I fixed so it didn't make racket because I'm a noise freak. I had a buddy that hunted just like me. He hunted as hard as I did, same places I hunted. I would put him in trees, but he hunted out of an old Summit or API or something. It was all aluminum. He didn't have it taped up. He wasn't slow and meticulous, and I could hear him from 300 yards climb a tree, and I'd see 20 and he'd see nothing. This was every day, and when I took his stand and I filled it with foam and I taped it up, he started being successful and he started seeing deer. And it goes back to, you know, noise, scent control, not spooking deer getting in. You know, if you ease up and you find a tree and it's tore up and 2 deer jump up and they run straight down that ridge away from you blowing, you might as well move. I'm not saying you won't have success there, because if it's the rut, you might, but I'm moving because everything that was on that ridge that I'm trying to hunt knows that something was back this way. So those deer are going to get up and filter the opposite direction. So, I mean, you know, the small things that you take into consideration when you're hunting. And man, I was not that guy. I'm not that guy that's like, well, every hunt's a successful hunt. Not for me, it wasn't. I don't go out there just to be in the woods. If I wanted to go be in the woods, I'd be a nature watcher, you know? I mean, I was out there to kill stuff. So, you know, I had a different mentality when it came to that, you know?
Well, something interesting you mentioned earlier about that also is, you know, don't be jumping the woodies out of the ditches. Don't alert the squirrels. Can you talk about that a little bit, where it's not just that you're trying to not jump deer, but also you're trying to not alert all the other
around you. Yeah. When I would get into an area that I knew, now people would see me, and people that know me now, they'd be like, no, man, I seen that dude. He was walking 6 miles an hour through the woods. Yeah, but I was going somewhere. You know, I may go half a mile at 4 miles an hour, as fast and hard as I can walk. But when I get to the spot where I know I'm fixing to hunt somewhere in the next 3/4 of a mile. All right, I slow down, I get meticulous, and every wind change, wind variance, how it's coming off of this tree, how it's breaking off of this creek. I'm steadily shaking that camo dust sock, and I'm working my way around that wind so it stays right. I'm not doing this, you know. I'm not banging and clanging. I'm toe to heel, and it may take me 15 minutes to go 200 yards. I'm easing in. I'm looking at trees. I'm paying attention. If I see deer up ahead of me, I'll sit down and wait them out. Wait till they walk plumb off, or I will make a complete circle around them. I try not to walk. If I know I'm in an area where wood ducks are going to be screaming, and I think my deer are bedding on the edge of that, I'll stay off of that so that I don't spook them. Now, I love to walk ditches. I love to walk the edge of creeks and that kind of thing. But typically, especially mature bucks, they'll bed right against that with their back to it, watching the other way. And if you're walking right down it, your success rate's going to go down to where if you're 200 yards off of it, you know, looking at it, you got the wind coming to you, and you're slow and quiet. A lot of times you can get in there without that he's going to see you or hear you if you walk up on him. If you're a couple 100 yards off of him, a lot of times you can get away with that. And man, so many deer I've killed on bios and that kind of thing because I knew that, and I learned that from canoeing in. Just, be canoeing in, see 3 big bucks laying. They'd be laying with their back to the water. Well, after 4 or 5 months, I'm like, okay, I need to be coming in from the inside, and I need to be staying off of this. Where when they get up and come, they like to, little nooks, little bends. They like to bed in those areas. And, you keep that in your mind, and it may not work 1 out of 20 times, but that 1 out of 20 that you kill a 140-inch deer because it worked, it was success, So I would always just be real cautious about noise, movement. Keep everything here. Keep your hands up and down. Even in a stand, if I have to wipe my serious scratch, I'm real slow hand to body. I'm not up here doing it like this. I'll come up my body and back because you can't. That motion they don't see, they don't pick up. When you're walking through the woods, if you're slow and meticulous, I've walked up on so many turkeys, so many deer, so many bobcats, coyotes, and it's because I'm slipping from tree to tree. I'm keeping something between me and the wide open woods, or me and where I'm going that kind of breaks that concealment up, and I'm doing it with a purpose. I'm willy-nilly out there flopping along. There's a big difference in when you learn how to do that, or woodsmanship, and stalking squirrels with a 22 is the best way to learn that. When you get to where you can kill a limit of squirrels with a single shot 17 or a single shot 22, you know how to sneak through the woods.
That's a common theme, man, with a lot of guys that we talk to, squirrel hunting.
Yeah, it teaches you growing up, it's a ton of fun. There's good wild game as there is to. You can't beat a fried squirrel, some gravy, taters, and biscuits. I mean, I'm in every time. and when you get to where a lot of people can go out there with a 12 gauge shotgun and kill them as squirrels. Take a single shot rifle out there or a pistol and go out there and kill a limit. Go out there and kill you 8 or 12 of them with that, and get to where you can do that consistently, and then you'll be able to sneak up on anything else you want. My bucket list is to go kill a big mule deer, to stalk a big mule deer. And when I'm stalking a squirrel, I'd be up here stalking a rabbit. I like to eat a couple rabbits a year, and we got a bunch. And I'll get out there right at dark. They'll come out, and I'll be trying to stalk them and kill them with slingshot or blowgun or bow. And my heart is pounding the whole time I'm stalking this rabbit. And that's the way it is when I'm on big game or anything else. There's just something about stalking that piques my interest. And to some extent, when I'm hunting, once I get into the area that I think I'm going to start hunting, that's when I'm in stalk mode then. And I'm everything around me, I'm stopping, I'm glassing. What do I have up there? I walk with a purpose, and I pick those trees, those tree tops, and you don't want to just go busting into a treetop or something, because a lot of times that's where that big buck's laying. Or you see a big log lay down, they'll lay right behind those big logs, and a lot of times they'll be on the backside of you take a tree out there that's twice as big as the other trees. Those big bucks will back up to those kind of trees, and you learn to just kind of watch for those things. And man, a lot of the deer I killed in the same areas, so I had some knowledge from the past. It's okay, that deer came from right there. I'm probably gonna have another one come there, and 2, 3, 4 years down the road, I'd kill another big deer right there that done the exact same thing. Those 2 deer right there, I killed 150 yards from each other 3 years apart. They done the exact same thing 3 years apart. So and once you get in on it, that's another thing. Once you find a big deer, every 2 or 3 years, you can kill another big deer in there. There's something about that area that deer got big and he likes. And it's kind of like with us, we have, we're all steak eaters. There's a steak out there we like a little bit better than the rest of them for some reason, and you stay there long enough, you'll get us. That's what I tell people all the time. Just, kind of look at what you do in life and then put that into your deer hunting, and you'll figure them out.